Frozen Tundra Football League.
Friends and fellow FTFL, it is I, host of the show, owner of the still running wild but no longer undefeated Hulkamaniacs, the true king of the FTFL, and lest us not forget that song in your heart. That's right, it is I, Brett Sieber, and we are now 2 weeks down into this fantasy football season. And I'm not going to lie, this rhythm that I'm now finding myself back in, you know, watching the games, taking notes, getting ready to film, putting this on, I've missed this. I hope you've missed it too, and I hope you're enjoying it. We're doing what we can to keep you entertained. This week, oh my goodness gracious, was football and fantasy football hit hard. Somebody, I'm listening for it. Wait, here it comes. Oh yeah, there it is. Call the ambulance. Injuries. And not just, you know, people out for a couple weeks injuries. No. Big-time season-ending injuries. And not just, you know, big-time season-ending injuries to Joe Schmo. No. Some of the top stars in the game. Saquon Barkley, gone. Cortland Sutton, not necessarily a big star, but was supposed to be the top receiver for Denver, gone. Nick Bosa, star of the San Fran defense, gone. Out for a few weeks, McCaffrey, Mostert, Adams, the list goes on and on and on. The waiver wire was all sorts of hot this week as people were scrambling to find replacements running back wise. My goodness gracious, another week like this, and it is going to get real tough to find yourself a running back. Also tough to find are undefeated teams in the FTFL. We are down to just 2 of them. However, one of them doesn't even crack the top 5 when it comes to power rankings. More on that in a little bit. This week, also a pleasant surprise. Matt joined the chat board in a more forceful fashion, and in a just as forceful fashion was told to take a seat. And after his performance this week, maybe that's where he should stay for a little bit of while. You know what, Matt? I appreciate the zest, especially tearing on your own self. Nothing more appreciated than one who's willing to poke fun of themselves. Thank you for that. We also, this week, got round 1 of everyone's most anticipated matchup of the year. Clyde Edwards-Helaire versus A.J. Aaron Jones. Now, last week, Clyde had the narrow edge, but I think we all know how this week went. We will update that in a little bit. Of course, it is another week. It is another episode of, or segment of, Who Dis? All of that and more. Let's get going to the games. We start off with the Ryan Deason, by the way. Let's have another. Ryan Deason fantasy football team coming in 1-0, taking on the Pack Attack at 1-0 with rights to all alone in first place on the line in the South Division. And Ryan Deason won this one, walking away 120.5 to 98. Now, why did Ryan Deason win this game? Well, that could go all the way back to draft night with the very first pick of the draft. Eric had his pick of all sorts of players. But in my mind, there was only one clear number 1 pick. And that was Aaron Jones. Instead, he went with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Well, this week, Aaron Jones went smooth off. 38 points. He just crushed it. Throw in 26 from Mahomes, 17 from most part, most of which came from one play, and then he promptly exits stage left. 16.5 from Kelsey, 3.5 from Robinson and Hilton, 1.5, 2 of his receivers, 3 receivers, 17 points. Still no touchdowns. That's back-to-back weeks playing 3 receivers, 0 touchdowns amongst the bunch. Then again, if Aaron Jones is going to run all over the place, maybe who needs receivers? Higbee on the bench, 22.5 with 3 touchdowns. My goodness gracious, some tight ends don't have 3 touchdowns all season. Tyler Higbee had 3 in 1 game. Deesum had 106.5 points on his bench without a kicker and a defense. Over 200 points on the board. All sorts of things going right for Deesum. For Eric, there was one bright spot. And I hate to talk about it because, as you all know, I really don't like this man. That's right. Stupid-faced Russell Wilson and his stupid, gut-wrenching cooking got 44 points. That's a hell of a performance. 44 points. It really dropped off precipitously after that. Zero line with 11. Melvin Gordon with 11. Patriots defense 10th. And the aforementioned Clyde Edwards-Helaire with a mere 7 points. 7. Last week he had 14. This week he had 7. If we follow the pattern next week, is it 0? Is it really going to be 0? For his sake, I hope not. Nyheim Hines made the starting lineup, rewarded Eric with a half-point. Edelman sat on the bench, got 14 points. Wouldn't have mattered in the end. Eric got beat. Clyde Edwards-Helaire got beat. Let's update it now. Woo! It's a 2-1 and then some difference. AJ with the smooth 50 points to Clyde's meager 21. Woo, that stings. Deesum all alone at 2-0. Eric now 1-1. Another undefeated team in the South who is no more is the Architect, who came in at 1-0, taking on his friend from a long time, or for a long time, the king of the FTFL at 0-1. Matt came in flying high and promptly had his wings clipped, 116 to 44.5. It has been a while since we've seen a score that low. Sid now takes a commanding 10-5, overall winning record over Matt in the history of this friendship. Sid is rolling with Tannehill still 28 points. McCaffrey 18 points. However, out for 3 to 4 or more weeks. That is going to be interesting to see how he fills that void. OBJ and Deontay Johnson both chipped in 16. Dalvin Cook 13 points. Funny thing about Dalvin Cook, his team was down 25-3 with 8 minutes to go in the game, and they were still running the football. Damn, love to be a running back in that offense when you're never ever going to pass. Oh wait, they tried. It's just that they couldn't, and their quarterback was awful. Speaking of awful, Matt, good Lord, Ezekiel Elliott 17 points, and then there was no one else above 5. I don't even have another name to report. Now, there was 67.5 points on Matt's bench. Now, wait, if I check my records, 44.5, 67. Now, I'm using Invergrove Heights math, but something tells me 67.5 is greater. This was one doozy of a week for Matt. Falls to 1-1. Sid moves to 1-1 as we move on to our third game of the week where somebody's O had to go. The Mixing Cocktails coming in 0-1, taking on Mana, 3-time Lucky Pants champ Mana at 0-1. And it was a high-scoring affair, 124 for Jeff, 103.5 for Andy. That's right, Andy, formerly of the Dilly Dilly. Maybe he should return to that name. League champion. Best draft score coming out of it is now 0-2. 0-2. 103.5 is a respectable score, but 0-2, that is going to be a tough hole to climb out of. He has not been 0-2 since 2017. It has been a few years since Andy has had this kind of slow start. For Jeff, Dak Prescott came roaring back this week, 32 points. Nick Chubb, 20.5. Darrell Waller just shredded the Saints defense on Monday night for 18. David Johnson, only 3. But he was the only one below 7.5. Josh Allen, 36, and Stephon Diggs, 20 on the bench, respectively. Didn't need those points this week. Andy Calvin Ridley, 21.5 points. He is the #1 receiver right now in fantasy football, and Andy is really not doing much to help him out. Otherwise, second high scorer on the team, and really this point kind of solidifies my argument, Justin Tucker, 17. David Montgomery, 15.5. James Conner, welcome back with 15, although he really didn't miss much but a couple quarters. Really not a whole lot on the bench, and again, falls to 0-2. Jeff is now 1-1, and we have reached the time of the show where I have just one question for you. Who dis?
Who dis?
All right, so this week on Who Dis, we are highlighting a player who really, I guess, kind of stepped into prominence the moment that Leonard Fournette was traded away. That's right, you're like, well, the Jaguars. Who's going to run the football? Enter James Robinson. James Robinson is a name you're probably going to want to get to know. He was born on August 9th, 1998. That was just 3 short months after I graduated. Decent, you were already in college. All right, so he grew up in Illinois, attended Rockford Lutheran High, where in his high school football career, he ran for 9,045 yards and tacked on 158 touchdowns. It's almost 40 a year. What are they playing, 11, 12 games, 13 games if you're going to state, 14 maybe? Dang, that's a season. That got him a one-way ticket to Illinois State, where over his career he rushed for 4,444 yards, 1,899 of those coming in his senior year, along with 18 touchdowns. But those kind of numbers at Illinois State, of course, being at a lesser school, didn't garner the attention. He went undrafted. He was signed after the draft by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Funny thing, he went undrafted in our league because, of course, we all assumed Leonard Fournette was going to be their running back until he wasn't. But now we come to the point where I really feel that you should know who this. James Robinson is a rookie running back. There were a lot of rookie running backs in the draft this year. But right now, James Robinson is better than Jonathan Taylor. James Robinson is better than J.K. Dobbins. James Robinson is better than Cam Akers. He's better than Zach Moss. And that is right. James Robinson is better than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Therefore, I feel it's time to update this. That's right. James Robinson, with the smooth 22 points on the year, takes over second place in our chart. Eric, you passed on Aaron Jones. You've never won the DSM Award. It's early, but let's be clear. We're watching. And thanks for watching. Who dis? Who dis? All right, so now back to the games. Boy, oh boy, last week after a defeat, the visitors from Planet B with questionable motives said they were having a fire sale, said they were leaving Earth. It appears they're already kind of got one foot out the door because this week they came in at 0-1 and promptly fell to 0-2 when Team Linkowitz, who came in at 1-0, just dropped the hammer, doubled them up 102 and then some to 48.5. Only 4 points better than Matt's measly performance. Good Lord. Now, John did score 102 points with a 0 from Saquon Barkley, and there it is going to be interesting to see what John does going forward. Yes, he has Derrick Henry. Yes, he has, Jonathan Taylor. On the bench, Tariq Cohen is his next best option, and there's a couple guys that are injured. I didn't quite look to see who John picked up. For now, though, Matt Ryan just dominating, even though his team can't seem to find a win. 32 points. Tyreek Hill, 18.5. Baltimore, 13. Jonathan Taylor, also with 13. He is 2-0 in the season. However, he is ranked number 8 in the power ranking. That has everything to do with his 123 points against. 123 points against. Lowest by a wide margin. Now, every year we see this. The team that has the lowest points scored against them is often one of the top teams. Doesn't matter how you win. A win is a win. Get into the playoffs and watch and see what happens from there. At 0-2, though, the playoffs are starting to look rather distant for Swart and his team. Drew Brees, 12. Drake, Jones, and Cook all had 7 apiece. Julio, 1. Emmanuel Sanders, half point. Julio really seems to have lost a step and really seems to not be the favorite target anymore in Atlanta. Going to be interesting to see how that goes. Burrow with 24 and Big Ben on the bench with 22. Way better than Brees. Still wouldn't have mattered. Speaking of missing a step, Drew Brees is kind of looking along those lines as well. Throw in the fact that you kept Kenny Golladay over Aaron Jones, and this season has really gotten off to a rough start. 0-2 for you, 2-0 for Linkowitz, and finally the last game of the week, the 1-0 Hulkamaniacs taking on the lowest scoring team in Week 1, the Radioactive Monkeys, at 0-1. It did come down to Monday night. It did come down to a rather large margin to try to close. We got close, but close doesn't really count here. 118 to 111 if you're Saltmarsh. I'm going to say Stupid Face Jr. Kyler Murray running around much like Russell Wilson does. Got himself 26 points running and throwing. John Brown with a stupid, late, lame-ass touchdown. I hate it. I hate it. I know you know what I'm talking about. You're playing someone fourth quarter, and these crappy points come rolling in. 10-point touchdown to John Brown. That was the difference in this game. Well, I made some mistakes too on my end. The Colts had 16 points on the defensive side of the ball. Well, of course they did because they were playing the Vikings, who got safety for a second consecutive week. Spielman, you spent no money on the offensive line, and now finally it's all coming home to roost. Love being a Packers fan. Miles Sanders and James Robinson both had 15.5. Golden Tate, 4.5. Mark Andrews, a half point. They're the only two players in single digits. As for my team, Alvin Kamara, Monday night, 26.5 points. He did his part. DK Metcalf on Sunday night, 18 points. He's the number 2 receiver in fantasy football right now. He did his part. Chris Carson threw in a pile of points, 15. He did his part. Sony Michel, you really let us down. 0 points for Sony Michel. 0. At times, it didn't even seem like he came in and played one play. Oh, let's get him out for 2 series. Come back in for 1 play. Just cut the guy, Bill Belichick. Cut him. Let him go somewhere else and play somewhere else. Because, good Lord, we know that he can be just a little bit better than what we saw on that night. Now, had I played Cam Newton over Aaron Rodgers, I would have won. Had I played Tyler Lockett over Sony Michel, I would have won. It's tough. Last week, 110. This week, 111. I like the performances, but still, I fall to 1-1. Salty rises to 1-1. Let's get the stud, the dud, and the decent update, and then we're going to send this home stud of the week. This one was rather easy. It would have gone to stupid face Russell Wilson and his 44 points, but his team lost. That's right, because your cooking sucks, Russ. Instead, Aaron Jones, 38 points for the Ryan Diesel Fantasy Football Team. Dak Prescott at 32 gets an honorable mention. Last week, he was kind of the weak link that didn't quite get his team to victory. This week, he made sure to get it done. Dud of the week, oh, easy. Sony Michel, not even an issue. 8 points in week 1. This week, we lost by 7. I would say Matt's team, whole team, is an honorable mention for the dud of the week. And the decent update, a couple things we're going to watch here. And it all seems to revolve around Aaron Jones. Swart, you kept Kenny Golladay over Aaron Jones. I think that was a poor choice. Time will tell. Eric, you passed on drafting Aaron Jones. I think that also was a poor choice. Time will tell. But right now, he's 3rd on the list. And we got a long ways to go. As we head into week 3, we are looking at a couple of rematches. We're going to start off with the Ryan Diesel Fantasy Football Team at 2-0, taking on the Architect, looking to rebound at 1-1. Now the rematch is Linkowitz at 2-0, taking on Plan B at 0-2, and Manad, 3-time Lucky Pants champ Manad, 1-1, taking on the Mixing Cocktails, who are looking to get off the schneid at 0-2. Pack Attack, 1-1, taking on the Monkeys at 1-1, and the king of the FTFL taking on the real king of the FTFL, the Hulkamaniacs, 1-1 in the King Bowl. Boy, oh boy, thanks for joining us this week. Tune in next week. A brand new segment will debut, but until then, peace!